Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another video here. Hope you guys have been doing well since my, last video here. I had a little absence. I've just been busy in life, kind of. But yeah, we got another video for you here. Hopefully you enjoy it. As you can see, kind of from what I'm on right now in the title of this video, whatever it ends up being titled, since I haven't really decided yet. I'm kind of just discussing COD and BO6, I guess in particular since it's the most recent one, just by factor of elimination. Talk about that more. Just kind of giving you my thoughts on this series and the game in particular, kind of what I like, what I don't like, kind of, what I think some of the big problems for COD have kind of been recently. Because again, it's no secret that this game, even before BO6, which probably one of their better performing games, honestly, um, hasn't exactly been on the top of the world anymore and hasn't been at their peak anymore. But I just wanted to talk about that and kind of what some of the issues I've seen are and kind of why they're issues and kind of discuss COD and BO6 in general here. Yeah, let's just go ahead and dive right into the video here. As you can see, I kind of pulled up the Steam page for COD just for something to reference occasionally. Might pull up some other ones eventually, but we'll see. But yeah, again, I don't want this to come off as a negative video or like a hating video, because in general I try to be a more positive guy as far as like glass half full instead of half empty, and I also like just in general to hope things are good. But the reality of COD is, again, they're not at the top of the mountain, they're not at their peak, and it's been a downward slope really since BO3, to be completely honest with you. They've had some successes. I'm not saying that they're losing money or that they haven't had some popular games since then, but as far as the quality of the actual meat and bones Call of Duty games, I think it's irrefutable that it's been going down since then. And I just want to kind of share some reasons as to why I thought that. One, and this is not a BO6 unique issue, but it's a recent COD unique issue, is skill-based matchmaking. Again, I don't want to beat up on you know something that's been beat to death here, but at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to ignore when you're making a video like this, just because at the end of the day, skill-based matchmaking has no place in traditional COD. Rank systems, like if you want a ranked gameplay mode in COD, or you're playing like a game like CS:GO or Rainbow Six Siege, skill-based matchmaking and rankings, which is essentially what that is and should be anyways, makes sense. You need it. It makes a lot of sense. That's something you want in your game, and it works very well. But for an arcade kind of first-person shooter game like COD, outside of ranks or something, if you wanted to implement that, skill-based matchmaking doesn't make sense. I think some of the bigger issues with it that I personally have, and a lot of people have, is it kind of removes some of the fun out of the game and it removes player improvement out of the game. Because again, essentially what skill-based matchmaking is trying to do is put you on an even playing field with the entire lobby, trying to match you up against equally skilled players and kind of put you where you're supposed to be skill-wise based off, your performances and your KD and stuff like that and your stats in general. That's kind of the whole reason. It's like, oh, I had a few good games. I'm gonna get curve stomp here and thrown down to my proper spot or whatever on the skill-based matchmaking, or vice versa. If you have bad game, you get some new, and have some competitive games there. So it's not a perfect system, obviously, because again, it's so adjusting, it's so fluctuant. But on top of that, the actual idea of it in itself, of trying to make everybody kind of, on an even playing field, kind of trying to drive everybody to like a 1.0 KD almost essentially, of like, oh, this guy's not overperforming, he's not underperforming, he's on an even playing field, which is essentially a 1.0 KD. In the game like Call of Duty, that's kind of the big stat there. The problem with that is when you're playing, against players who are all very similar skill level to you, and infrequently playing against players are more importantly better. You don't get better at the game. It's something applied to life or sports, video games. It's kind of silly to apply to video games. It's like, is it really that serious? That's serious, people. But regardless, you don't get better at the game when you're playing clones of yourself as far as your skill level goes. You don't have to adapt. You don't have to learn any new things. You don't have bad performances that you have to reflect on, and good performances to encourage you. It's just this fucking level playing field and monotonous like kind of level. It's very annoying, and it's not great for people to play on. On top of that, skill-based matchmaking kind of sucks the enjoyment out of these games. Again, when you're truly at a level playing field, you generally speaking, obviously everyone has bad games and really good games, but on average, the idea is you're gonna have an average game. Nobody wants a fucking average game, especially in a game like COD that's high action, all these cool score streaks that you're seeing here and stuff. You know, people wanted a nuke, and in a game like old MW2, people could get nukes fairly reliably. You wanted those AC-130s, those nukes. You want attack dogs, you want choppers. You want all these high score streaks and the curve stomp and pub stomp people. But the entire idea of skill-based matchmaking is to eliminate that, or at least limit the amount of times it happens to you, to in a misguided sense of like keeping people around or making it easier or more, fair for people, especially like lower end of the spectrum there for skill wise, you could say. It's to keep them happy and to keep them around because it's like, oh, this guy's, Christmas noob or something, which used to be a very real COD. Christmas noobs getting curve stomped. It's like, oh, well, we don't want to create an environment that's negative for them. The first few games, we don't want them to leave because they can't do well. It's like that's an experience everybody has been through. At least played the COD before this. You don't want to have things just handed to you. You don't want these participation trophy, and it's kind of counterintuitive. A lot of people's enjoyment of the game to just be handed things to always be kind of coddled, you could say. And again, it does limit the amount of times. Like, who runs in BO6, unless you're just a very good player, of course, in general. If you're just a casual player, who's running high score streaks? No one's running Nuke or like fucking the Dreadnought, I think is the BO6 like big score streak. No one's running those because it's kind of counterintuitive because it's like I might as well run a UAV or like a care package or something like actually a get, obtainably and don't have to get huge KDs and off games for. Those happen less frequently now, which is a lot less fun for a lot of people because they're like, oh, well, is it really to beat up on noobs or something? It's like yes, getting a lot of doing well in the game, getting these score streaks. That's what people played COD for most. It's a fun game. You want something that can be competitive once in a while. You want to win though at the same time. So it's just kind of this balance that you know, a lot of old games didn't really have it addresses an issue that wasn't really there. Maybe it was because I don't know. Maybe people are getting, less or more casual or something with the game or something, but no one complained in MW2 or BO1 or stuff with skill-based matchmaking or the lack thereof, I mean, because it wasn't an issue that people were really concerned about. So yeah, I think that's kind of for skill-based matchmaking my rant there for that, and why I think it's kind of a net negative, honestly, for the series in an enjoyment aspect. Some other things, which now let's start tying in BO6 here, just the map development and like the map design on some of these recent games, and BO6 is the newest, and by far one of the most blatant ones of this. The maps by and large just are not, on par with the quality that they used to be. BO6 again is a very good example of this. I don't know if it shows all the maps. It pans through some of them, obviously, but not in great detail on the web page here. But regardless, um, a game like BO6 here, I think the chief complaints, of course, outside of skill-based matchmaking and stuff like that, what has kind of earned it some of these reviews. Maybe there's something else that happened recently, the review bombing or something. I don't know, but one of the initial complaints of it, especially, was there weren't really any good maps in any game mode. You of course had them remaster Nuketown. That's a lot of what their recent CODs. That's a lot of what their really good maps have been, is just remastered like classic COD maps. In BO6, what else do you have? You have like Stakeout, which Stakeout is a good map if you want a lot of kills, want a lot of action, want to farm for camos or something. But for actual COD gameplay, it's a little, it's too small, honestly. And you don't want huge battlefield level maps, or of course in COD either. You obviously have to strike a balance, but you don't want battlefield maps, but you don't want something like Stakeout or Shipment either. Again, these things are popular because you can get so many kills. There's so much action, and people have horrible attention spans these days. And grinding cameras on there is by far the easiest of really any map that I've played on in BO6. So those are the reasons people really enjoy it quite a bit. But again, at the end of the day, for true COD gameplay, it doesn't really fit that well. It's just a mosh pit, and that's literally why it's in the fucking game mode called mosh pit, is because it's just like brain rot fucking COD at the end of the day, you know? I'm not saying it's a bad map. I play it a lot. I enjoy it because, it's a good, quick, play a few games, have some fun, and grind some camos. But it shouldn't be your premier map, like, of course, other than a remastered Nuketown on your game here. And every other map really outside of Nuketown and like, I don't know. Stakeout is good, and then maybe a couple other maps are okay. But by and large, the maps just, I mean, they're not like BO2, BO3, MW2 here, where they're just banger after banger after banger of a game. And all these maps and stuff like, Dome, Terminal, you've got Rust, you've got Nuketown, you've got Firing Range, you've got Hijack, all these great maps that, consistently came out with every new game back then. It's just been lacking. The maps either just, they feel kind of poorly laid out. They don't really have a lot of, character to them. It's just bad. Again, another thing for some of these maps, they've also kind of wandered away in a way, I guess, to these kind of like 3-lane traditional setups for the flow of the map for some of them, which really hasn't worked for a lot of them. Again, camping is a lot more prevalent in some of the recent CODs, which you can argue is maybe a player change or player problem, but is also arguably also a fucking map design where if you promote that more, which kind of ties into a few different things, but if you promote that more, it's going to happen more. Again, kind of segueing into my next point here with the guns. Again, the guns really haven't hit as well, as they used to back in the old days. I mean, don't get me started about the sniper rifles. The sniper rifles in this game are like the worst I've seen since like BO1, honestly. Personally speaking, I've taken some gaps, so I might have missed some. And I've taken some gap years off of COD, so I might have just missed some, of course. But regardless, it's not the same. Like the scoping in and the quick scoping and the trick shots just aren't as good anymore. It's kind of a problem, and it honestly kind of just sucks. I mean, the gunplay, there's always these metas, which, whether you like metas or not, as far as gunplay in a game like COD, it's kind of personal preference. I'm not going to dig too much into that. But I did like the days of like MW2, for example, where it's like, oh, how did they handle gun balancing? They made everything usable. They made everything OP or overpowered and everything so that if everything is usable, if everything is overpowered, then nothing, is overpowered. It kind of sounds stupid or counterintuitive, of course, but it's true that if nothing is overpowered, no, if everything is overpowered, nothing is because it's like, there can't be cold without heat, without hot and everything. It's the, ends of the spectrums aren't there. It's just, all one category. So I preferred that approach to it, and also the gunplay again they remaster some guns and there's some things like the AK-47 that's in a lot of them regardless and those are fine I guess but it's just yeah some of the guns feel very weak and some of the guns feel good. There's an obvious kind of bias. It depends on the maps you play and the game modes you play of course, but especially for like stakeout or something, which is one of the more popular like original BO6 maps, like shotguns, particularly auto shotguns and SMGs seem like they're kind of just king. LMGs are good if you play hardcore. You can just spray through them and stuff like that. So metas and like different use cases. If that's something you like, I guess it's good. But for me personally, I prefer the more open nature of I can use whatever I want if I'm good enough because everything is usable. That's just me personally, though. So yeah, that's kind of just my take on that. I don't think the map or gunplay for BO6 or for a lot of new CODs, I'm not just going to single them out, has been particularly good, which I think has really caused a lot of detriment to the series. And those are kind of some of the big things I think that have kind of degraded that. The other one, I mean, this kind of just a given, and it's almost like a unavoidable tragedy, unfortunately, these days in gaming. It's just the microtransaction and like all this extra, foo-foo, nonsense they build into these games these days with, not even just saying like, oh, like Advanced Warfare style, like I'm just paying for a better fucking gun. Just the cosmetics are a little overboard. Again, people's like, oh, it's not harming the game or anything. Why do you care if people buy cosmetics? But it's like you don't want it shoved down your throat. You know, you have to go through the menu and you see the store and everything. It's a bit much, and they kind of look goofy and stupid. A lot of them, honestly, too, which I'm not a huge fan of. Obviously, games like Advanced Warfare started. Obviously, if you game has this objectively better performing guns out of loot boxes and stuff, I'm hugely against that. Which again, some of those recent games after BO3, they had that. BO3 had that, at least at the second half of the game cycle, which sucked. And it's kind of just an unavoidable thing. Another thing that I think is really stupid is battle passes. Again, largely cosmetic and not like pay to win necessarily or anything. But I miss the days where every game didn't need to have seasons or fucking battle passes, and not to have Fortnite catch a stray or anything, of course, because I don't want them to. This isn't a video about them, which I just gave me a good idea. I'm going to do a video about them at some point actually now, but um, it kind of started with them, and it just infested its way into every other game series, particularly shooters. And it's just annoying, honestly, that every game has to have seasons and battle passes now, or needs to have a fucking battle royale like Call of Duty, which I think Warzone and Blackout originally, they really took away from the core focus of COD, which has always been the multiplayer, and for Black Ops has been zombies as well, on top of campaigns, of course. But it took away from that, which I think is a problem. Kind of segueing into my next thing, I think Battle Royale has kind of diminished COD, especially the meat and bones of COD. Say what you will about Battle Royales. I won't deny I'm a hater of most Battle Royales. I don't really like the game mode that much. I think it was kind of cool back in the day, but it's like it's not that fun. It needs to die down. And again, I think it's kind of ruined a lot of COD. Like, you can't deny that Warzone, and Blackout was first, but Warzone really has been the mainstay of COD for years now and been their main focus, which I think is hugely detrimental to the series as a whole. Because again, it's first of all, I don't think it's that good Warzone personally, but second of all, the meat and bones of COD, even Modern Warfare, has always been the multiplayer. Zombies has always been very important as well, but multiplayer has always been the meat and bone of CODs, and then campaign added onto it. All of that is being subtracted away and focused on Warzone recently in recent years before this, because obviously BO6 isn't, Modern Warfare is not tied into the same way, but regardless, that has been a huge issue. Is kind of the pivoted away and the incessant need to kind of follow these trends and do stuff that you're not really supposed to do. I'm not saying never change anything, don't try something new, but don't force anything either, if that makes sense. And that's kind of been my kind of gripe with that. I guess, and kind of going on the zombies. I know not every game Call of Duty comes out has zombies but for Black Ops. Zombies again, it really hasn't hit since BO3. Again, Infinite Warfare was okay. It had a fresh kind of. They took a swing at it and they did a pretty good job of it. They were batting like 300. Um, I think they did a pretty solid job making fun at least. But again, like the BO6, even with the new map, the Citadel de Moras or whatever, I can't. It'll pop up eventually here. But like, it's clearly trying to play on nostalgia and trying to kind of go off of Horizon Draka, I believe. I think of the right one. I don't know, but the bow and arrow map from BO3, regardless if I messed that up. And it just the swords feel underpowered. It just feels like a watered down version of the BO3 game, and it's like it doesn't reinvent a lot of things. There's not a lot of good map. Like I think Liberty Falls or whatever or whatever the Liberty map is wasn't particularly good. This map is a watered down version of it. BO3. What is it? Terminal? Because I did the Easter egg on this before the like got the little symbols whatever. I should remember the fucking name of it. But the other zombies map is solid and but and one thing I can appreciate is that they did make it fairly hard with just sheer amount of zombies. So it is I do like the improved difficulty, I guess you could say. But stuff I don't like is the hit markers. I don't like this armor and like health bar thing. I like the traditional get hit by a few zombies, you're down unless you have Juggernaut and everything like that. But that's kind of just they're going away from that, going away from the root and bones instead of just making good lore and like new good maps and everything, which I'm not a fan of. And I said I like the improved difficulty, but I don't like the way they handled the zombies, like spawning and number of them. They just their idea of improved difficulty is just throwing sheer volume at you, essentially, as far as the number of zombies, which I'm not a huge fan of. They also don't have barricades anymore, so they pop up randomly on the map when you're training or running around, and from places you wouldn't expect normally, which I don't think is necessarily good. Like good, I like the idea of barricades and slowing them, having specific entry points, as well as just the idea of more is harder isn't necessarily a good one. I think you should just made the game harder, or kind of made better maps, I guess, instead of just like, oh well, we can't go back to the roots because we want to do something new. Let's just throw more fucking zombies at them or something. It's not a huge thing, but it's just, I don't know. It just feels like a cheap solution to it, honestly speaking. But yeah, I don't know. It's just zombies is there, and the campaigns. I mean, the campaigns in BO6 was okay. At least the first bit of it, anyways. But again, that's kind of been subtracted in favor of trying to optimize, other game modes. And kind of just going back to BOC generally with it, some things I don't like about it is the movement. Omni movement is a cool idea. I'm glad they at least tried to optimize it or try something new, but it just feels weird to have different movement systems in the game, and it's opened up the door to so much sweat. It's insane. Like people, diving through the air and trying to exploit it in ways that, really shouldn't be able to do in a shooter game, even an arcadey one. I mean, it's just kind of preposterous what people have been able to do with it. I'm not a huge fan of the movement as compared to just the traditional like run or walk, movement of old CODs. I probably just sound like an old head complaining right now, but regardless, I'm not a huge fan of it personally speaking. It just doesn't really kind of appeal to me, I guess you could say. Omni movement isn't, my cup of tea. And I guess kind of goes into another point I wanted to make about COD is just the game has gotten so sweaty recently. Like this is honestly a fucking gaming wide catastrophe is a bit dramatic, but problem I guess is like people. I don't know if it's this might be a real like thing to say honestly, but people just seem to be much sweatier at video games than they used to be, particular COD and OmniMove, and I think has really kind of highlighted that with the shit people are doing and like how fast they're moving, and they seem like they haven't taken their ADHD medicine in like 2 years with some of the shit they're doing, whether it's beneficial at all to them or not. And it's kind of just annoying to play against for a lot of people, which that's a topic for another video, honestly, why people sweaty so much in video games these days. But regardless, I think that's kind of contributed to that. Honestly, I don't know what these mostly negative reviews have come from recently. The endless amount of cosmetics. I don't even care that they suck. That I suck them. I get it. I'm unks. This guy sounds like me. But yeah, I mean, like this guy's saying, I made a point about the cosmetics, even which again aren't pay to win, but like this guy says, you don't want them shoved down your throat. You don't want them in you don't want to get killed by, it seems like there's more, unicorns and dragons in the game and Squid Games guys. There are actual soldiers and like default skins. It's a bit much, and they try to push it a way too much, in my opinion. I mean, it's okay to sell merch or to sell cosmetics in game and stuff, but just do it in a very kind of keep the shop over there in neglectful way. It's like, oh well, you're not going to sell as much, it's not going to make as much money, and that's the problem. It's not going to change because of that. But regardless, it's not something you want to shove down people's throats and everything. And yeah, huh. This is an interesting comment section to read through. Don't buy this game, in my opinion, unfinished. Yeah, again, it just doesn't feel well optimized. Another thing is people have been making compilations of like skill-based damage and like hitboxes and stuff, where it seems like again, on top of the skill-based thing, trying to, you know, pat you down to, your level by pairing you up against better players, it really does seem like it's just unfair at some point. It's almost like Clash Royale if you've ever played that, where it's impossible to go on the massive winning streaks because they'll just directly counter you with decks essentially. But yeah, that seems like kind of what they're doing in COD, where there's a lot of weird clips about people just straight up seemingly having unfair disadvantages. Like this guy takes a million bullets to kill. Even the ones through walls was like, oh, you don't use FFMJ, you're shooting it through a wall. The game doesn't have a huge time to kill to the point where you should be emptying a mag into a wall, even across a stakeout map, to actually be able to kill somebody. And people have seen weird things of hitboxes, which I don't know if it's a cosmetic issue or an intentional skill-based issue, but regardless, it doesn't seem very well optimized or anti-bugged out or anything, which it's a problem with a lot of games, which some games it's like, oh, well, they didn't launch great, but given a year, they were okay. And it's like, first of all, for COD, this is a yearly fucking cycle game, and second of all, you should launch a proper product. And I think one thing that people kind of burying the head in the sand on in BO6, people are thinking this game is such a success. There's so many players, it's doing so well, and is COD back? Well, it seems like a lot of their player base from numbers seems to only be from Xbox, Game Pass subscribers, people who AKA get the game without any cost, like additional cost of the $70, or is it 60? No, it's $70 for this. Yeah. And people who don't actually have to physically buy the game, or just buy the game. I mean, physical or digital. And it seems like a large portion of their player base is only playing because it's like, it's free. I might as well download the new COD. And I think that was a good move on their part to put it on Game Pass. Definitely opens up, the amount of users you're gonna get. But yeah, it seems like that kind of inflated people's idea of like, oh my god, this is so popular, so good. It's like a lot of these people are playing this game just because it's convenient to do so. If this game was sold outside of Game Pass, I mean, you eliminate a large chunk of the player base that wouldn't have actually bothered to pick this game up, myself included, honestly. Having Game Pass Premium was really the only reason I picked this game up. And I enjoyed it at times. It was kind of fun for a little bit there, but it's kind of just got old and annoying. But yeah, I don't know. That's enough of me rambling about COD and BO6 in particular and everything. I think I kind of expressed my points about COD and what I think about COD and why it's gone downhill recently. Again, I hope for the series to turn it around. I hope for it to be good. It's not a series I hate. It's a series I grew up on. A series I liked and played a lot back in the day of, especially. And it's something I want to see return to its peak. Something like Halo or Battlefield, for example. But it's just it's kind of frustrating to see. And I kind of just want to talk about it in my experience and thoughts and viewpoints on it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video there. If you do, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video and the content I post on my channel. Really helps out the channel. It's really appreciated, as is your view, of course. And let me know in the comments down below, if you enjoyed the video or what your thoughts are on BO6 or Call of Duty as a whole. If you agree or disagree with any of my points or really just anything. But yeah, look forward to seeing that. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. I'll catch you guys in the next video.